My girlfriend said, "You're too soft. I miss the rough passion I had with my ex." I nodded. The next morning, she woke up to a printed screenshot of that message, taped to her suitcase at the door. This morning, 66 missed calls and 36 texts. She said it so casually, like she was talking about the weather. "You're too soft. I miss the rough passion I had with my ex." The words didn't come with an apology. No hesitation. Just cold honesty wrapped in cruelty. I sat there, stunned for a second. Then I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I realized I'd been wasting time with someone who didn't deserve my softness. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't question her. I just went quiet. And that silence, that was the beginning of the end. That night, I stared at her text message on my screen. I screenshotted it, printed it, folded it perfectly. Then I packed her things, one item at a time, placing that message on top like the final nail in a coffin. I taped it to her suitcase, placed it neatly by the front door, and slept like a baby. She woke up the next morning to that message staring back at her own words, printed and underlined. No goodbye note. No closure. Just consequences. Now, 66 missed calls. 36 messages. Begging. Apologizing. Too late. This softness? It left with her suitcase. It was supposed to be a quiet night. We were sitting on the couch, a movie playing in the background, half-eaten takeout on the table. The kind of peaceful evening most couples crave. That's when it happened. Soft voice, almost like a passing thought. "You're too soft. I miss the rough passion I had with my ex." Just like that. No warning. No build-up. Like it wasn't the verbal equivalent of stabbing someone who trusted you. I remember turning my head slowly, like I wasn't sure I heard her right. But she was already sipping her wine, eyes still on the screen, completely unfazed by the emotional bomb she had just dropped. That's what hit the hardest. It wasn't just the words, it was the calm, indifferent way she said them. Like I was some boring chapter she had already flipped past. My heart didn't break. Not right away. It froze. I sat there, smiling on the outside, burning on the inside. Something inside me shifted, like the moment you realize the person beside you isn't your partner anymore, but a stranger who doesn't see your worth. It wasn't the volume of her words that shattered me. It was the whisper. The quiet betrayal in the middle of something that once felt safe. She expected me to get angry. Maybe throw a fit, ask questions, demand explanations. But all she got was a smile. A calm, quiet smile that didn't match the weight of what she had just said. And that's what confused her. She paused, looked at me, almost waiting for the drama to begin. But I just nodded again, took another bite of my food, and let the silence fill the space where confrontation usually lives. That smile wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't weakness. It was the moment I stopped seeing her as someone I loved, and started seeing her as a problem to be solved. Inside, I wasn't calm, I was calculating. Every memory, every late-night work meeting, every time she turned her phone over when I walked in, suddenly made sense. Her words weren't an accident. They were the truth finally leaking through the cracks in her disguise. She didn't realize it yet, but she had lit the fuse. And my smile. That was the calm before the explosion. I knew I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't beg her to stay. I wouldn't try to outdo her ex-no. I was going to make sure she remembered this smile, the last one she'd ever see from me. And when the storm came, it wouldn't be loud. It would be silent, surgical, and unforgettable. She called me soft like it was an insult. Like kindness, patience, and emotional availability were weaknesses. But what she didn't understand, what she never took the time to learn, is that softness doesn't mean spineless. It means restraint. It means I could break someone without ever raising my voice, without lifting a finger, and still sleep peacefully at night. I wasn't soft because I had no backbone. I was soft because I chose to give her grace. I let things slide. I made excuses for her behavior, thinking love meant understanding. I overlooked the flirtatious texts she said were jokes. I ignored the way she always seemed more alive when talking about her past than when living in the present with me. I held back my suspicions, thinking I was being too sensitive, because that's what she always said. But the moment she told me she missed her ex's rough passion, something snapped. Not in a loud, destructive way, but in a cold, internal click. Like a door shutting forever. I realized that my softness wasn't being appreciated. It was being mocked. She took it as a sign that she could say anything, do anything, and I'd just take it. That's when I stopped being soft. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I simply reached for the edge she didn't know I had, the line she thought didn't exist, and crossed it with quiet precision. When she fell asleep that night, I stayed awake, still, silent, but very much alive inside. Her words replayed over and over in my head like a taunt, a dare. I got up from the bed without making a sound, walked to the living room, and opened our shared laptop. Her phone had synced with it weeks ago. I knew where to find the message. There it was. You're too soft. I miss the rough passion I had with my ex. Crystal clear. No context needed. Just pure disrespect in black and white. I took a screenshot and sent it to myself. Then I opened the printer app. The sound of the printer whirring in the dark felt poetic, like a machine quietly preparing the evidence of betrayal. One sheet. One sentence. That's all it took. I walked back to the bedroom and stood there for a moment, watching her sleep, peacefully, as if nothing had happened. Then I turned to the closet and pulled out her suitcase, the one she used for vacations and weekend trips with her friends. I packed it with mechanical precision. Her favorite shoes, toiletries, charger, jacket. Everything she'd need to not come back. The printed message? Folded once, taped right on top. I placed the suitcase at the front door like a gift. She had no idea what morning had in store for her. But I did. And it was going to be brutal in the quietest way imaginable. She woke up like it was any other day, stretching, yawning, mumbling something about needing coffee. I watched from the kitchen, pretending to scroll through my phone as if the entire night hadn't been the beginning of her downfall. She didn't notice the silence in the air, didn't sense the tension radiating off me like heat. But the second she turned the corner toward the front door, everything changed. She froze. Her suitcase sat there neatly, like it had been packed by a concierge. And taped right on top, bold and undeniable, was the printed screenshot of her own message. Her exact words, staring her down. You're too soft. I miss the rough passion I had with my ex. She blinked like she couldn't believe it. Her hand trembled as she reached out and touched the paper, like somehow it would dissolve if she held it gently enough. But it didn't. It stayed firm. Real. Unavoidable. Wait, what is this? She stuttered, turning to me. Her voice cracked. For the first time, she wasn't in control. I didn't answer. I just sipped my coffee and nodded again, the same way I had when she said those words to me the night before. That's when it hit her. This wasn't a warning. It was a conclusion. And that suitcase by the door? That was my final word. She didn't leave right away. First came the confusion, then the denial. Are you seriously doing this? She asked, like she couldn't believe I had the audacity to respond to her disrespect with action. But I didn't reply. I didn't raise my voice or get pulled into a conversation that would only serve her ego. I just walked back to the kitchen, grabbed my keys, and left. No goodbye, no last look. What followed was silence. Real, crushing silence. The kind that echoes. She texted once. Then twice. No reply. Then came the calls. I watched the notifications stack up on my screen like desperate footsteps chasing someone who had already disappeared into the night. 10 calls. 15. 20. By the time I checked again, it was 66. Her voice messages got longer. More frantic. From, "Can we talk?" to, "I made a mistake," to, "You can't just ignore me like this." But I could. And I did. She expected chaos. She expected me to fight, to beg for her to stay, to prove myself, to compete with the ghost of her ex. What she didn't expect was silence. And that silence. It screamed louder than any argument ever could. It told her everything she needed to know. I was done. Completely, coldly, and forever. By the time the storm had truly hit, I had already found peace. I was sitting on my balcony, sun on my face, coffee in hand, and her desperation lighting up my phone like a fire alarm no one cared to shut off. 66 missed calls. 36 texts. Each one a variation of the same theme. Panic, regret, confusion, manipulation. At first, it was, "Please talk to me." Then it turned into, "That message was taken out of context." By the 10th text, she was writing paragraphs, weaving excuses with just enough fake vulnerability to sound believable. "I didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. You know I love you." The classic script. She'd used it before. Probably on her ex too. But I wasn't reading her messages for answers. I already had the only one I needed. The truth, in her own words, printed in bold on her suitcase. Now, all her backpedaling just sounded like noise. Static. And I was calm. Not bitter. Not vengeful. Just done. She used to say I was too emotional. Now she was drowning in hers, while I sat untouched, unmoved. That day, I didn't just ignore her. I deleted the thread. The calls. The voice messages. All of it. Not out of spite. But because some storms aren't meant to be weathered, they're meant to be left behind. When word got out that we had broken up, the group chat lit up like fireworks. Friends started calling, messaging, asking what happened. Some concerned, others just fishing for drama. And of course, she wasted no time crafting her version of the story. According to her, I overreacted, acted cold, and threw her out without warning. She painted herself as the confused, heartbroken victim left in the wake of my so-called emotional outburst. But I stayed quiet. I didn't engage. I didn't defend myself. Until one of our mutual friends, the kind who always seemed to walk the line between both camps, texted me directly, "Is it true you just kicked her out of nowhere?" I didn't reply with a rant. I didn't even explain. I just sent a screenshot, the same one I printed and taped to her suitcase. No caption. No commentary. Just her exact words. After that, the silence from everyone was louder than the accusations had been. The few who had been quick to judge backed off. One even replied, "Damn. Okay, that changes things." See, people can spin stories. But screenshots? They don't lie. She thought she could twist the narrative. But the truth was louder, and this time, it was speaking with receipts. She always said I was too soft. Said it like it was a flaw, a defect in how I loved. Like gentleness meant weakness. She never realized that softness isn't the absence of strength, it's control over it. And when I finally unleashed that strength, it wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was sharp, clean, final. She expected yelling, slammed doors, tears. Instead, I gave her surgical precision. Quiet decisions that cut deeper than any fight ever could. I didn't humiliate her publicly. I didn't seek revenge online. I simply showed her exactly how much damage silence and composure could do. And she wasn't ready for that. The woman who once mocked my kindness was now crying into my voicemail, begging for a second chance. Her confidence turned to desperation, her arrogance to anxiety. But I wasn't the same man anymore. I had outgrown the role of her emotional punching bag. She said I was soft. But when I showed her steel, my boundaries, my dignity, my ability to walk away without a word, she crumbled. Turns out, the softest people can be the strongest when pushed too far. And when they choose to be done, no force on earth can make them come back. In the end, I didn't need to ruin her life. I didn't need to expose her to the world, or humiliate her on social media. I didn't scream, cry, or demand closure. I simply left. Quietly. And that silence. It's what haunts her the most. She kept calling for days, texting for weeks. Mutual friends said she was asking around about me, trying to figure out how I could just walk away like she never existed. But I had already let go. My peace had finally returned, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. There's a kind of revenge in living well, in healing without needing an apology, in rebuilding without letting someone back in. I didn't need to get even. I needed to be free. And I got exactly that. Now when I wake up, there are no knots in my chest. No doubts in my head. Just silence, the good kind. The kind that feels like freedom. I still have the screenshot saved, but I never look at it. I don't need to. I already know who she is. And more importantly, I know who I am. She mistook my softness for weakness. But in the end, I walked away with something she'll never have again. Peace.